There is this horrifying creature that lives on a tiny uninhabited island in the southwestern Pacific that lives underground, and at night it will come out and it will eat anything from coconuts to fish to birds to pigs.
What is it?
To people. And in today's top story, we're going to learn about someone that accidentally wound up on this island, totally stranded, and came face to face with this nightmarish creature.
What
but
animal?
before I get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format,
Oh shit! Gotta sit up in your seats, chat. You know it's about to get real.
Dr. Guy Garman, also known as Doc Deep, was an avid scuba diver, and in 2015 he decided he was going to put his scuba diving to the test and try to break the world record for the deepest recreational scuba dive. At the time, the current record was 1,090 feet, set by a man named Ahmed Gaber in 2014. Guy's plan was to go down to 1,090 feet and then keep going to 1,200 feet, and that would be his record-setting mark. But in order to do that, you need a dive site that goes down to 1,200 feet. But luckily, Guy did most of his scuba diving off the coast of St. Croix in the Caribbean, and that area was known for
What's down there? Maybe the answer's not in the courts yet.
Now, when most people think of scuba diving in the Caribbean, they think of beautiful clear water and amazing coral reef and exotic fishes, and everyone's so happy and it's so great and the water's so warm. And off St. Croix, that was true. But if you continued going offshore about 250 feet, you'd reach a drop-off that's known as the wall. And we're not talking about a gradual drop-off. We're talking about the seafloor going from flat to turning 45 degrees and going straight down 2 miles into a complete black abyss. Now, the only people that are actually allowed to dive into the wall are very experienced scuba divers with all the certifications. But if you're a tourist and you come to St. Croix, you can still scuba dive off the coast where it is beautiful and shallow and warm and there's reefs and fish, but you're allowed to swim out to the edge of the wall. And people report getting out there and standing on the edge of this cliff, looking in the water with their mask and not being prepared for how intimidating it is. I mean, you're standing on one side where behind you is like this tropical paradise, and in front
I'm a trained scuba diver. Are you really?
of you is this seemingly endless void.
Dude,
where we don't even know what's
scuba.
down there. I mean,
Let's
we've
go
only
scuba.
explored 10% of the ocean. These deep portions of the ocean we can't get down, so we don't know what's down there. What we do know is that sometimes whales will dive down into these deeper sections of the water, and scientists will be tracking their dive, and when they come up again, after only going down maybe 1,000 or 2,000 feet, they'll return with these massive bites taken out of them, because apparently there are creatures down there that we haven't discovered yet that are so big and so aggressive that a whale seems like a reasonable thing to go after for food. And so
A whale? Here's the funny thing though, like we've explored I say almost, we've sort of explored, right? We've at least mapped all of the surface of Earth, right? Except for the deep oceans, because we just can't fucking get there. It's too much pressure, right? Submarines don't even go to the bottom of the deepest parts of the ocean. It's nuts. It's nuts that we're like missing so much.
well, our boy Guy decides, I'm gonna find out what's down there, and I'm gonna do my record-setting dive at the wall. And so after meticulous planning and hiring a support team that's gonna be there to help him do this dive, he, his wife, and his son fly to St. Croix and they get ready to do this dive. Guy had arranged for a line to be lowered right at the edge of the wall that was weighted down by an anchor that was gonna go down all the way to 1,300 feet. And they would put a metal placard at the 1,200 foot mark on the actual line so that when Guy went down, he would reach that placard at 1,200 feet and then he would go back up, and that's how the dive was gonna go. And so in the early morning of August 15th, 2015, Guy, along with his big support team, they head out to the edge of the wall. Guy gets into the water along with his son, who's gonna go down with him for the first 200 feet. And he looks up at the support boat and he gives him the okay. He's ready to start the dive. And then he and his son give the signal, they're ready to go down, and they start their descent into the void. As they're sinking lower and lower and lower in the water column, it's getting darker and darker until it's completely and totally pitch black. They reach the 200-foot mark. They come to a stop as was planned. And Guy's son, Kip, would give his father a squeeze for good luck because they can't communicate. And then Kip would go back up, and Guy, on his own, continues down to the 1,200-foot mark. Once Guy was on his own, a timer started because it's very important to track how long he's down at depth. And his team was expecting him to be back up at the 350-foot mark in 38 minutes from when his son left. But 38 minutes came and went, and he was not at the 350-foot mark. But even though this is a big problem, Guy had a whole bunch of extra air canisters with him, and so if he ran into any sort of problem, he would be able to continue to breathe air and fix the problem before coming up. It would just mean longer decompression stops along the way up. And since he was tethered to the guideline, they knew he couldn't drift away. And so they just had to wait and hope that he ran into some problem and that he would fix it eventually and then he would come back up again. But he never did. They couldn't really send a rescue mission down to get him because Guy was going so deep. He was the only one that was able to get down there.
So how do you pull him up?
No one else was qualified or would be able to do it or had the right equipment for it. He was totally on his own down there. It would take 3 days before they were able to get the right equipment that was able to pull this line up out of the water, and attached at the end of it was Guy, and he was deceased. He had drowned. But the really scary thing about what happened to Guy is when he went down into that abyss, he had all these extra air canisters attached to him. And so presumably he went down the line, probably all the way down to the record-breaking mark, and then he got trapped somehow. And as he's trapped on this line in total darkness, surrounded by who knows what down there, probably for several hours, he just cycled through his backup air canisters wondering, am I going to run out of air and drown? Or am I going to get attacked by some animal down here?
Why didn't they pull him up? Who's on a line? Isn't the whole point of the line? You don't have the shit there to pull him up. That's what I'm wondering. Like, why the fuck didn't you pull him up? After the first, you know, like you set a timer, right? And they set the timer. And once he reaches the point where he's starting to switch out canisters for air, that's the point where I'm like, hey, we should pull him up. Don't you think? It's probably time. Maybe. That's
there is this tiny little stream that
I don't know. He made the story sound like as if they were unable to pull him up. But why the fuck why would you go down if you're not able to pull them up? I don't know, dude. It's weird.